at the state capitol today with Mark Bays, Urban Forestry Director for the Oklahoma Forestry Services. Mark, it's great to have you back on Oklahoma Gardening.
It's nice to be out under the shade of the beautiful oak trees on the Capitol grounds.
They are wonderful. Well, today we're going to talk a bit about these trees that live in this urban type setting and what kinds of challenges they face. What are some of these unique things that urban trees have to deal with?
Yeah, if we look at the forest, you know, trees are happy, just doing well out there. But if you look at trees in urban areas, I mean, it's just like everything's working against them. You have, it might not be the soil, compaction going on, limited root space. You have the pollution, the runoff from cars and everything. It's just, you know, the temperature difference that we have in our cities and towns. It's just, things are just stacked up against trees in urban areas.
Absolutely. You know, if we look statewide, we have enough challenges already. We have a great range of climate zones. We have these temperature extremes, but then when you get in the city, it seems those factors are compounded.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you think about here in Oklahoma City, we're in zone 7. And if you look on a zone map where that goes, it goes all the way out to the East Coast. Well, I can promise you in the same week, they did not have -4 and 80 degrees within 1 week, which is what we had here in central Oklahoma this last winter. So it's really challenging for the trees and really all plant material in Oklahoma.
Absolutely, and we've seen some of our plants suffering from that this year.
We have.
Well, when we look at trees this season, we're going to look at some different issues with street planting and different ways we can manage trees in the urban setting. And today I want to focus on tree growth. We don't always have as much room to grow trees in the urban area, and of course we can limit size through pruning, but there's also another method with
There's a lot of different ways to help keep trees in check with the environment. A lot of times large trees are planted close to buildings, and so you don't want them growing into their buildings. Sometimes they're planted in close to sidewalks, and so you know, you don't necessarily want to have large trees close to sidewalks and things like that. And so root pruning and pruning the tree is one way to help control some of that. But another way is through the use of chemicals that you can actually control the growth of a tree. But then we're also finding some added benefits from controlling the growth of trees.
Well, many of our viewers might be familiar with the use of plant growth regulators in herbaceous crops. When we visited the poinsettias growing at Christmas time, they use those to keep the size nice and compact. Kind of a similar application for trees as well.
Right. You can use tree growth regulators, and they've been around since the 50s. The utility companies, you know, large trees around utility companies, they've been using them to help control the size of large trees in that area. In construction areas, you know, they've used them as well. But what's really kind of interesting is to see some of the added benefits that we're seeing with some of the tree growth regulators beyond just limiting the size of the tree.
Okay. And what are some of those benefits that we're seeing?
Well, there's some added health benefits. The roots we're finding, because all the photosynthesis still goes on in the leaves and you still have all of that food production, you actually have more roots growing as a result of that. So rather than all that food energy going towards stem elongation and more leaves and more branches and thicker things like that, well, they actually get more roots developed. So that's why it's a really added benefit to maybe consider growth regulators in a site where trees may have had some construction damage.
Or where they're in maybe in a street planting where they don't have a lot of soil, they could grow some more roots to take out nutrients and water from what's available.
Or trees that have been like planted too closely to buildings and things like that. You don't have to go in and prune them as often. You can apply growth regulators so they don't grow into the buildings and things like that. So anytime you have a tree that may be outgrowing the place, I mean, I know we're all doing a lot better job of planting that. And,
the right tree,
the right place, but every now and then that just might not happen. So it's just another tool that we can use to keep those trees healthy and happy where they're at.
Very good. We looked at another use indoors with interior scapes. You have some beautiful ficus growing in
the Department of Agriculture building. Our building was put in the 80s, and it's just this wonderful canopy of ficus trees that we have in our main entryway. But they've almost outgrown their containers that they're grown in, and you know, they go all the way up almost to the 3rd floor.
Yeah.
And so we've seen some of them actually start shifting in their planting pot that they're essentially planted in. So we're going to be applying some of these growth regulators to keep that more in check. Hopefully we'll get some more roots developed and the trees will become a little bit healthier in that limited area that they're planted in.
Excellent. Now we also are working today, going to look at a tree here by the Capitol.
This is a very special tree on the grounds of the Capitol. It's we call it the George Washington elm. And they've done a lot of construction over on the south side of the Capitol in recent years, and it's sustained a little bit of root damage. So we're going to be applying this tree growth regulator to maybe try and improve some of the health of the tree.
Okay, and you're working with a company who's donated their...
There's a wonderful company out of Tulsa came over. Edko came out, and they're donating all the materials today, and it's good to have them out here.
Okay, well I'm going to go visit with Mike from Edko and see how that's done.
All right.
We visited this American elm in the past, looking at how its roots were protected during the construction phase by elevating the pavers above the root zone. Today, the next phase of that protection for this plant is going to use the plant growth regulators to stimulate root growth. And joining me is Mike Wellner to show us how this is done.
Hi.
Welcome.
Well, to begin with, whenever we're getting ready to do our plant growth regulator, there's a couple of things you've got to know: the species and the diameter of the tree.
Okay.
So we know this is an American elm.
Right.
So the next thing we need to know is the diameter.
The diameter.
And so what we're going to do is measure at 4.5 feet tall, which is called DBH, and we're going to measure it around.
We're measuring the diameter.
And the diameter is 49 inches.
Okay.
So we know that
Pretty big tree.
It's pretty big. That's why I needed your help. So we know that it's an elm and it's 49 inches in diameter.
Okay.
And so we look at the rate chart that's on the label for the product that we're using, Canvastat. And it's categories of different trees, and this is in the C category.
Okay, and the category just tells you how much
tells you how much of the product to apply, because some trees are more sensitive than others.
Okay.
So we want to make sure we get the right amount in for the right tree. We also look at the condition of the tree and whether we need to put 100% in or 75% or 50%. So for this tree, we're going to do about a 75% rate.
Okay.
So we look on the label, we get all that, and we are going to be doing it with an injection.
Okay.
And so there's a couple of methods you could use, but the one we're going to use is an injection into the ground. We're going to put about 24 holes around the tree.
Okay.
And we're going to put about 190 milliliters of product in each hole.
Excellent. And after this product's applied, tell me about how it's going to take form in the tree and what we might expect to see in the near future.
Well, what will happen is we put it down near the base of the tree so it can uptake it very, very readily. And as the tree transpires, it will start to kind of pull that product up into the tree and out to the leaves. What it typically will help the leaves look a little bit greener, so they look a little healthier. It'll help also with some maybe drought conditions that sometimes we experience that in Oklahoma.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And so it can help with that. And then when the tree is pruned, because we're not really doing a full rate, it will still get some growth back at a semi-normal rate, so if it is having to be pruned at any time.
Okay, and one of the major things we're going to be looking for is this stimulated root growth, and it's those fine fibrous roots.
Right, the fine fibrous roots that will help with nutrient and water take up, and they just help the tree actually have better health.
Okay, well thank you so much. I did want to point out before we leave that of course this is something that a certified pesticide applicator needs to apply.
Right, this isn't a product you can go buy at Home Depot or Lowe's, so you have to be licensed to buy it, and it needs to be a certified applicator applying it so it's done properly.
But if there's a use in the home landscape, we could hire an arborist to do the job.
Correct, you could do that.
Okay, well thank you so much, Mike.
All right, well thanks for letting us help out with this project.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.